Hey, everybody, what is going on? We're a little early this week, but you know what? That's how we roll. When the other shows, they don't want to show up, we are still here. It's week 17. It's the DFS Pick 6 on RotoGrinders. That's RotoWorld's DFS Pick 6. And, guys, we've made it. It's week 17. I'm Eric Crane, joined by Evan Silva, joined by Rich Rebar. Rich, how are we doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Here we are at the end of the road. You know, I turned in the final worksheet of the year, so that's always like a bittersweet moment. I'm glad to have the work done, but you know, it's bittersweet because there's not going to be another one next week. So I mean, here we are. We made it. I mean, the end of a good season, man. It was for as weird of a season it was in the real NFL. I feel like NFL DFS. I mean, it was definitely my best year of NFL DFS since I've been doing it. And, you know, hopefully everyone else had as positive years, you know, on that angle as well.
That must be nice. Your best man. What a guy. What a rebar. This is also joining us, Evan Silva. Evan, are you breathing a little bit a sigh of relief that the season's almost done?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm also just looking forward to the playoffs because I get to watch those games like out of enjoyment. You know, it's not like a job anymore. Yeah. And, you know, I still do columns on all the playoff games, but it's just a lot easier. It's like fun to write about it instead of trying to, you know, jam in all this information on 32 games. You only got to write about 4 games. So it's a lot more enjoyable.
I know for me, I'm just like week 17 is always kind of, you know, you're sprinting to the finish, and it's because you got all 16 games in one day. And of course, Rich, what does that mean? That means that we got no Thursday night football, we got no Monday night football, and the way the NFL is setting things up,
no Sunday, no Sunday night football either.
No Sunday. I was like, wait, there's not football on Sunday? You really threw me. But the way the NFL is doing things this year, all 16 games in the afternoon, they put more of the meaningless games early in the day, and then all the games with playoff implications later in the day. That way, the teams, they can't just look at the scoreboard and, you know, they can't see what happens in the first game. Well, now we can play guys. Now we don't have to play guys. Rich, I kind of like how they're doing it this year.
I think they had to do it because I think it's a real problem how it played out this year, that there's one game where both teams have something to play for. That Carolina-Atlanta game is the only really enticing game on the docket where you say, well, both these teams are striving for something tangible. The rest of the games they had to move around because, like you said, it's one team playing this other team, and if they don't win, you know, that affects another game. So they had to move all those games together. But we just have this one game that you can kind of circle, and it's going to be both these teams really trying to push for a W. And the rest is just relies on a lot of other stuff happening in the other games.
Yeah. How do you use that when you're approaching, you know, this week? Because obviously we've got some teams that are going to have nothing to play for. We know so far the Rams are going to sit guys. We know the Jaguars say they're going to play guys. I'm not so sure I believe them. Evan, how do you approach this week? Because it is a tough week.
Well, the first thing I try to look for is like guys who might be like Rex Burkhead was last week 17, where they could just get a ton of carries and, you know, right around minimum price and crush it for you. And there really aren't that many this week. I think that the most popular one will probably be Malcolm Brown. But he's not in a great spot, and we could talk about him a little bit more. But the 49ers run defense has been great. The offense just is highly unlikely to be as, you know, explosive without Andrew Whitworth, without Jared Goff, without Todd Gurley, with probably the receivers limited, you know, so the offense just isn't going to be as good. So I wasn't really able to uncover anybody who really stands out like that, although I think that Wayne Gallman is interesting against the Redskins. After that, you know, just treating it like in a regular week, except, you know, definitely keeping the motivation in mind. See, I really think that like Matthew Stafford could rip this up, but the Lions have, you know, they don't have anything left to play for. They were eliminated from playoff contention. You know, we know that Jim Caldwell is saying that they are going to go 100%. And it does make sense from his standpoint to go 100% because he's trying to keep his job. But there are, you know, some players in those kinds of situations that make you just kind of wonder, you know, like, or, you know, you think about worst case potential outcomes, but like Stafford is like that. Jacoby Brissett, I think, is in position for an interesting bounce back this week. Jameis Winston against the Saints in the highest total game. But yeah, I mean, you just have to treat everything, I think, on a case by case basis.
So about some quarterbacks, Reeves, because obviously the most expensive guy over on DK is Ben. On FanDuel, it's Russ Wilson. Ben, I don't know how much I can trust this because, as we were talking about earlier, this is one of those games where the Steelers might look up. If they win and the Patriots lose, they're going to get the number 1 overall seed. Unfortunately, the Patriots are playing the Jets, so they're 15.5-point favorites. I don't think that's going to happen. I expect the Steelers to take a look at this game, and if at halftime the Patriots are blowing out the Jets, maybe pull back the reins a little bit. So to me, the guy I'm focusing on if I'm paying up is Russ Wilson. Reeves, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the Steelers too, they'll probably be ahead in their own game as well. And you look at Ben last week, his first week without Antonio Brown, he had his lowest pass attempts and lowest passing yardage since week 7. So I mean, and he gave way to Landry Jones like 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter of that game. Could be a similar scenario. I think that they'll down throttle for sure. They'll all suit up, but I think I don't think that they really anticipate the Patriots losing that game. I think that they're heading in knowing that. I'm starting with Cam. I mean, it's in the game that I said that matters the most. I mean, Atlanta is allowing the 3rd most rushing points to quarterbacks on the season. Carolina passes instinctively, inherently a lot more on the road. They pass on 66% of their plays on the road as opposed to 53% at home. The Atlanta rush defense has been really good. They're the only team that stopped the Saints in either game rushing the football. So, I mean, I look at Cam. I look at his rushing ability. I look at the bankable game script from start to finish. And he's probably the top guy that I'm going to look for. Russ is interesting to me. I mean, he's in a similar spot rushing-wise against an Arizona team that's allowed the most rushing points to quarterbacks. But, man, Russ has been kind of bad the last 2 weeks, 4.6 yards per pass attempt in both those games. Arizona's been really good since their bye week, too, on all defensive angles here, against the run, against the pass. Schedule hasn't been phenomenal, but they've been playing well. BA's on his way out. Who knows how, if they're, we'll get like a rally situation or whatever. But Russ, it scares me. I'm going to own some Russ, but more in tournaments. When I'm looking at core quarterback, I'm going to start with Cam this week.
What about you? On Team Russ or on Team Cam? Because I feel like you can easily make arguments for both these guys.
Yeah, I like both of them. I mean, I'm going to try to get exposure to both of them. I like, Baldwin's matchups in the slot against the Cardinals. We saw last week the Cardinals did not use Patrick Peterson to shadow Sterling Shepard. They really have never used, with the exception of some plays, they really have never used Patrick Peterson to shadow Doug Baldwin. And Doug Baldwin has ripped them up historically. Yeah. So I think that Baldwin –
last year he went off in this spot.
Baldwin, yeah, he has big upside. Jimmy Graham, the goal line back. So another team with questionable motivation. Actually, they really should theoretically have no motivation because they're locked into their seed is the Jaguars. Blake Bortles has been a top 10 fantasy quarterback in 5 straight starts. Last week, he was the quarterback 2 on the week. He's been running for a ton of yards, averaging 22 rushing yards per game since their bye week. I think is really interesting, but do we trust this coaching staff to follow through, with playing their starters the entire time? Again, Matthew Stafford, I think, is in an awesome spot. Historically, he has crushed Dom Capers' defenses. He's been the quarterback 6, quarterback 8, quarterback 2 on the week in their last 3 meetings. Marvin Jones in a great spot, Golden Tate in a great spot. Kenny Golladay played 95% of the Lions' offensive snaps last week, set a career high 8 targets. Ebron's been balling. They can hit you from a lot of different angles. The Packers have been bad defending running backs out of the backfield. That bodes well for Theo Riddick. So those are some of the quarterbacks that I'm looking at. I also really like Jacoby Brissett.
Yep.
And he has let me down a few times before this year. I really liked him in a home game against the Titans a few weeks ago, and he was just awful. One of those games where he's just holding on to the ball and waiting to get it sacked, essentially. But this Texans defense is cooked. They've given up, I think, 21 touchdown passes over their last 10 games. They have not been good at defending running quarterbacks. T.Y. Hilton is in a blow-up spot. Tight ends have been crushing them, Jack Doyle. So I think that Jacoby Brissett is sneaky. And if you look at like the games that he has played recently, so he really, he hasn't been really doing much lately.
A lot of good Ds.
But it is like, it's not surprising if you look at the defenses that he has faced. Just his last 6 games alone: Jaguars, Broncos, Ravens, Bills, Steelers. And now, he's going to get a much easier outlook here at home against the Texans.
Definitely like that. And, of course, we know speedy slot receivers against the Texans. Keelan Cole just went off against them. I mean, heck, anybody can do it. If you got a little speed, you can go ahead and party a little bit. All right, Rich, I'm going to ask you about one guy. Kirk Cousins against the Giants, a pay-me-my-money game.
I wrote Kirk Cousins down on the list. I had Brissett and Kirk Cousins. Brissett for the pay down. And I had Kirk Cousins as like a wild card. Worst pass defense in the NFL. I mean, they're 32nd passing points allowed per game to quarterbacks. I mean, we don't have to say per game anymore. It's just on the year. 32nd in fantasy points, passing points allowed per attempt. It all lines up. He didn't really hit in this spot at home on Thanksgiving. So, I mean, Cousins he's been kind of an all or nothing guy, so it's definitely a tournament type play. But he's had top three scoring weeks, in his usable weeks over the past 9 games. The only problem is they come along with six games that come at QB 16 or lower. But he's got multiple passing touchdowns in 5 of his past 6 games. The Giants have allowed multiple passing touchdowns in 7 of their past 9 games, including to Drew Stanton last week. So. So I mean, yeah, man, I wrote Cousins down as like he's a tournament guy. I think Jamison Crowder, when we get to wide receivers, is a really good spot as well. So I mean, yeah, Cousins I think is a tournament guy. I like Cam as the cash guy, Brissett as the pay down guy, and then Cousins is like the wild card guy.
Evan, what about Phillip Rivers? Because right now Melvin Gordon, he's currently questionable. Rivers in a great spot against the Oakland defense. If Melvin Gordon misses this game in a game that the Chargers have to win, I don't really see a way they don't let Rivers just air it out and say, you're our offense, go get it done. And to me, Rivers, Keenan Allen, once again this week, it could be a spot where we load up on that connection.
Yeah, he's definitely on my list. There are a few indicators that I don't love for Phillip Rivers. The biggest one is that the Raiders have actually been kind of good on defense since they changed defensive coordinators from Ken Norton to John Pagano. They've been using Sean Smith, their 6'4" cornerback, who looked like a free agent bust for as long as Ken Norton was there, to shadow number 1 wide receivers. He totally zeroed out Alshon Jeffrey last week. He had a good game against Demaryius Thomas. He's had a bunch of good games. He's been playing well lately. He covered Dez Bryant, held him to 2 catches a couple of weeks ago. Each of the last 5 quarterbacks that have faced the Raiders have finished as the quarterback 17 on the week or worse. So I'm with you. I'm with Keenan Allen, and I like and I like Antonio Gates again. So that is going to bring me back to Phillip Rivers. I'm definitely going to use some of them, but just one significant concern, I think, that maybe this Raiders defense is a little bit better than we were accustomed to in the first 10 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I totally get that. Rich, what about your boy Jimmy GQ?
Oh, yeah, Jimmy GQ's always in play. I mean, he's progressively gotten better all 4 starts. He's been a top 10 quarterback the past 2 weeks, probably going to play a shell of a Rams defense. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, he's kind of expensive on DK, though. You got to pay for Jimmy GQ, man.
Yeah, and you look at it, I would almost – I think he's going to be popular, too. That's the thing. I think we're going to see a chalky Jimmy Garoppolo. Everybody wants to play this guy. I mean, so would you rather pay, $6,700 for Jimmy or $66 for Phillip Rivers? Or like I said, I was even talking about Kirk Cousins. I like him for $6,200. And Stafford, and he's somebody. If I knew they gave a crap about this game, I would love him in this spot against the Packers secondary. But are they going to give a crap? Who knows? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe some Kenny Galladay in terms, and everybody else is going to other guys. Let's move on to running back, because 2 most expensive guys, Lev Bell, I don't think he's going to get a full allotment of carries. Certainly not enough to pay off a $10K price tag. Todd Gurley, $9,800. We already know he's sitting. So, Evan, the running back pool gets a little bit more shallow this week than we're used to, especially if we're paying up. Who are you looking at the upper end?
Yeah, the first guy that stood out to me was Alex Collins against the Bengals at home. Big favorite, 17 or more touches in 6 straight games, multiple receptions in all 6. His passing game usage has really risen recently. Bengals have given up 110 or more rushing yards in 8 of their last 10 games. Over their last 4 games, allowing over 4.5 yards per carry to opposing RBs. Does not look like Vontaze Burfict is going to play this week. Even when he's been in there, I mean, they've been getting gashed by the run. Last week, Alex Collins set his season high for routes run, and he also had his second highest snap percentage. So he is their offense right now. Their offense around Alex Collins. He has monster volume potential. He is underpriced, and he has a great matchup as a home favorite. So he pretty much checks every box. A guy to a little bit lesser extent, Latavius Murray, definitely more of a FanDuel play, but a guy who can get up there with a ton of volume, big home favorite. Derrick Henry, let Reeves talk a little bit about him. And then Wayne Gallman is my sleeper at home against the Redskins. Redskins just lost Ziggy Hood, one of their best run defenders. Haven't been good against the run anyway. The Giants have kind of slowly started to commit to Wayne Gallman as their main back. He's getting a ton of work in the passing game. That helps his floor and his ceiling, of course. And, I mean, I think that there's every reason for them to give him an extended look in Week 17.
I think the Seahawks would give to get Alex Collins back?
Would Alex Collins be good on the Seahawks?
Maybe not behind that line. Who knows?
I don't know.
Really weird, but he's crushing in Baltimore. So, I mean.
Yes, he is.
I mean, he's better than Thomas Rawls.
They didn't have this Alex Collins, man.
No.
That's for sure. He
just needed a shot. That's all he wanted.
He wasn't this type of back last year, man. He slowed down the past 2 weeks a little bit, but he wasn't this type of runner last year, man.
So who are some of the running backs you're looking at?
I had Gallman down too, especially on DK, because over the past 3 weeks, Gallman leads all running backs in targets and receptions, and he's gotten 40% of the rushing work over that span too, while Washington is 31st in rushing over their past 10 games. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of potential in a game where I think the Redskins are going to win. The only thing concerning is if Davis Webb does play a half, does that hold up that receiving work? But I mean, he's 42 on DK. I mean, I'm all about that life over there in the full PPR. Haven't brought up Derrick Henry. Who knows what we're gonna do here? DeMarco Murray. I mean, this dude could have no legs, and he'd still be a game time decision. They said they want to get him in a limited role. His role hasn't been limited enough. He hasn't been a limited player to this point. Derrick Henry's been supremely the better player all year. We've all known it. It's just we want him to get the full allotment of touches. He's got to crush the Jaguars the first time they played. The Jaguars have allowed 7 top 20 backs since their Week 8 bye. They've been better on the run, but still giving production up there for a guy that at Henry's price. I think he's obviously more viable and cheaper on a site like FanDuel, where he's basically the same price that he is on DraftKings. A couple other interesting guys I think are Marshawn Lynch if Denzel Perryman doesn't play. The Chargers splits with Denzel Perryman in and out of the lineup are pretty staggering against the run. They've allowed 145.2 rushing yards per game when he's missed or left due to injury, as opposed to just 108 with him active. Not a great spot though with a dog back, but Marshawn's 5th in the league in rushing since their bye. They finally started giving the ball. Thanks, Raiders. Their inept coaching staff finally realized they should start running the ball when their quarterback is, basically forced them to. Good job, Oakland, on that part instead of, earlier in the year trying to establish the run and get some wins. CJ Anderson, I think it's really interesting. He's gotten 62% of the Denver rushing attempts over the past 4 weeks after 45% prior. He's had 15 or more points in 3 of his past 4 games. He leads the league in runs of 5 or more yards over that span. Probably going to play against a shell of a Kansas City defense at home. And the Kansas City defense is already 21st in rushing yards allowed to backs anyways. So, I mean, he's in a decent spot. And I don't know, Brandon Oliver is interesting. I guess, are we interested in any of these backup guys that are playing for these teams? The Malcolm Browns, the Silvers, the Min guys, Corey Clement?
This is where you guys come to shine, right? The preseason all-stars. That's who you're looking at right now. The guys are you guys.
I mean, is Evan into any of these guys? I mean, Malcolm Brown's a tough sell for me. The volume is going to be there, man. I'll probably pepper him in just to have some ownership. But like Evan said, I mean, no Whitworth, there's another offensive lineman, and they already ruled out already too.
Their center, John Sullivan.
Right. So, and like you said, the 49ers have been really good against the run lately too. Under 3.2 yards per carry to backs over 6 weeks. Reuben Foster's kind of balling out now. He's been able to be on the field. Listen, Jimmy GQ just makes everyone better. And the whole team gets better when Jimmy's on the field. And, they start tackling guys. Yeah. They still can't cover anyone. But it's all right.
That sounds about right. Why not? Wait. Well done, Jimmy GQ. You're the guy is just my hero. Like, the guy is just – seriously, I bet
Kenyon Drake's in a pretty good – by the way.
Yeah, I stopped being willing to pay for Kenyon Drake when he got to like 6,500 and it bit me. Now it's over 7K. I feel like I've already planted my flag, and I just can't do it. Mm-hmm. Saints running backs are the guys I'm interested in.
Oh yeah,
Ingram. Like, doesn't it feel like we're all just sort of overlooking them in a matchup where they should just be able to run all over the Bucs?
Yeah, and they got to win. And I think when you look at the way the running back pricing plays out, and you just go down the list, Gurley's already out. Lev, you can't pay for in cash. I'm forgetting some guys on the list here. McCoy's been terrible on the road and terrible in Miami on the road. But he's at least you can at least project a workload for McCoy, though. But it's really McCoy and the Saints backs when you look at the two top shelves of running back, and when you say I'm going to pay for this and projected workload, those are the only three guys, the Saints backs and McCoy. The rest of the guys are all pretty sketchy to pay up for.
What about you, Evan? Are you interested in a little Zeke action there too, or are you just hanging around with the oh, no. You think they rest Zeke?
I think those Cowboy starters are going to be limited. I mean, based on Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones' comments.
All right, well, fine then. I won't play Zeke. Anytime I can just cross guys off the list, I'm happy to do it because, it makes my life easier. So other guys we are looking at. Evan, we didn't really get your take on the Saints guys. Kamara, Ingram. I think you could play them both this week pretty easily.
Yeah, the Bucs have been giving up a ton of rushing touchdowns. I think that bodes well for Mark Ingram. He's got the 5th most carries inside the 5-yard line on the year. Alvin Kamara was the guy who really lit him up when they played in Week 9. Alvin Kamara, 16 touches, 152 yards, and 2 scores. It's just a matter of, trying to pick the right one. I mean, you could conceivably run both of them together. Their team total is really high. Michael Thomas is still banged up, it looks like. So, they could try to get both these guys 17, 18, 19 touches in this game. They would be the primary producers because beyond Michael Thomas right now, with the exception of the random, Ted Ginn game, and the Bucs have been playing pretty well in the secondary, shockingly, recently. I think that they should settle at both these guys and make them the focal points of their offense for sure in this particular matchup.
Yeah, these are the two guys I'm really planning on focusing on because, Kamara, we know these linebackers of Tampa, they can't really cover anybody. We know Mark Ingram. Look, I don't think Sean Payton hates him anymore, which is good for us because we're going to keep playing him. Evan, anybody that we didn't talk about that you wanted to touch
on? Dion Lewis.
Okay.
If we get him without James White again, it looks like the Jets they're definitely going to not have Muhammad Wilkerson, and it looks like they might not have Leonard Williams either, one of their best, probably their best defensive lineman right now due to a back injury. He left last week's game early, did not return, was no practice on Wednesday. A little bit of love for Carlos Hyde. The Rams have been bad against the run to begin with, and they're going to not have Aaron Donald. Carlos Hyde he's got 18 or more touches in 6 of his last 7, I believe. And then Christian McCaffrey with Cam. I think that Christian McCaffrey has the best matchup of any Panthers pass catcher this week. Falcons give up the most receptions in the NFL to running backs. Christian McCaffrey hurt him pretty bad last time they played. It was 100 total yards and a touchdown. I think we covered everybody.
All right. Let's move on to wide receiver. The most expensive guy, well, he ain't playing. Antonio Brown's still out. DeAndre Hopkins gets he's questionable. He's expected to play though, right, Evan?
I'm sorry, who?
DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh, yeah, he'll play. He'll be out.
Okay, yeah. So he's in there against Indianapolis, who can't cover anybody. Problem is that TJ Yates throwing him the football, which is always an issue. Julio Jones, he will probably start the game and then just say, no, my pinky toe hurts. I'm out of here. So, I'm savage. I'm so sick of Julio Jones, man. Like that guy.
Do it, man. Push the button.
I'm not no, not going to happen. Reeves, I'll tell you, you're going to get like 20 seconds talking about Julio, and then I'm like giving you the X button, man. Go ahead.
Hey, you forgot that Reeves is the Julio whisperer.
I know, but I don't want to do it. I don't want to click the button, man.
Well, I mean, like I said, that game is the one where both teams have to win. Oh, no. Carolina has just been getting destroyed by lead wide receivers. I mean, since their Week 11 bye, they're allowing 303 passing yards per game, 14.4 receptions, 230 receiving yards to wide receivers, 8 touchdowns since Week 11 to wide receivers. Like I said, it's been all wide receiver ones, too. It's not these nickel and dime guys. I mean, some of the ancillary Bucs guys had big plays against them. Humphreys and Godwin had 2 long splash plays on them. But, I mean, Evans had his first 100-yard receiving game of the season against them. Thielen got him for 100, a couple weeks ago. It's been all dudes, just all wide receiver ones. Julio got him for 6 for 118. I mean, when you look at his price and you circle in games where you got projected usage and the game script and what they're going to be doing, they ain't going to be running the ball on the Panthers. I know that. So, hey, man, push the button.
I don't want to push the button. Tell me not to push the button, please.
Every lineup.
No, that is totally not the button I want to push. Are you kidding?
I'm putting him in every one.
No. Yeah. Come on, man. You're just messing with me, right?
No, man. No.
Seriously, me playing Julio and him screwing me is such the perfect way to end this season. I'm just like, yep. Week 17, down the drain. All right, Evan. Talk to me about Julio, I guess. Whatever.
I mean, I think that Reeves covered it pretty well. He's also number 1 buy low in Josh Hermsmeyer's air yards model. Like to see that. I think he's going to crush. So he's got a great history against the Panthers. Reeves talked about how they're just hemorrhaging points to wide receivers. The Panthers are. I think that Matt Ryan has a good game. I don't know, man. I'm 100% about Julio Jones. I also really like T.Y. Hilton. I know that Reeves does too. He was his cover boy this week. Let me see here. Marvin Jones. I really like Marvin Jones against the Packers. We already talked about him.
Yeah.
We talked about Hopkins. Jarvis Landry needs 105 yards to get to 1,000 on the season. In the final game, he's going to play as a Dolphin most likely. He is going up against the Bills. The Bills are like a zone coverage team. They are really good at limiting big plays, but they will let you eat in the middle of the field. You go back and look at like the short to intermediate receiver specialists against the Bills. Some big high volume games. Jarvis Landry was included in that. They played a couple weeks ago. He had 10 catches against him. People probably won't even want to play him, but he's in an awesome spot. Keenan Allen let a lot of people down, myself included, last week. The matchup is not that great. Raiders have been pretty decent against slot receivers for the most part. And he's a 50% guy anyways. But I think that, as a guy who's averaging over 11 targets per game over his last 6, this is like a positive regression spot. And especially if we don't get Melvin Gordon, I mean, the game plan should be highly pass oriented. We talked about Doug Baldwin, Larry Fitz in that same game. Josh Doxson, I think, is in a very intriguing position this week. At 13 targets last week, somehow caught only 2.
Josh Doxson could do.
No kidding.
Right. But the Giants have given up the most passing touchdowns in the NFL, and they give up a ton of big plays down the field. They've demoted Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. He's like a role player for them now. And, Janoris Jenkins has been on IR. So I think that Josh Doxson is an intriguing, cheaper play. I think that pretty much covers it for me for wideouts. A.J. Green. I wanted to mention A.J. Green.
Okay.
Because I don't think anybody's going to want to play him. The way to attack the Ravens right now is with wide receivers. We saw the Bengals still have a little bit of life left, and A.J. Green is awesome, and that's about the extent of the analysis.
He's just a good-looking dude, man. AJ Green's a good guy.
Yes.
He is a good guy. Reeves, is this finally the week we get something from Brandon Cooks? I am really sick of clicking that button. I'll play him and Julio together and just, not watch the games. I'll take it now.
Yeah, I mean, I worry about that game if they get up, and they down throttle as well, at the half or later in that game. But Cooks, I mean, listen, man, boundary wide receivers have just roasted the Jets. So, I mean, yeah, Cooks is in play. I like the AJ Green call. I had some notes on him as well. So since their Week 10 bye, the Ravens Week 10 bye, they've allowed 177.2 receiving yards per game to wide receivers after 113 per game prior. They've been also getting crushed by wide receiver ones, and this dates back to when Jimmy Smith was still playing. Guys like Devontae Adams had 100 yards against them. DeAndre Hopkins when Jimmy Smith. It's not just a correlation to Jimmy Smith being out. It doesn't hurt that he's not out. AJ Green has double-digit targets in 3 of his past 4 games. The only thing is that the Ravens haven't allowed a wide receiver to score on them since Week 9. So, I mean, you might not get the tud, but I like AJ Green as a play that probably people won't. Evan hit on all the guys I pretty much had notes on. I mean, I like Jamison Crowder since Week 8. He's 11th in the NFL in targets, 10th in receptions. We just saw Larry Fitzgerald just go nuts on the Giants. We saw Crowder go nuts on the Giants on Thanksgiving. They've got no interest in covering guys in the interior. And I think a guy I'm into this week as well is Ted Ginn. So Michael Thomas only played 64% of snaps last week. He didn't practice today. He'll probably go, but be limited fashion. The Bucs have allowed the most targets in the NFL and throws 15 yards or further downfield. So, I mean, I'm not going to play getting cash, obviously, but I mean, Ginn's a guy I think that is really interesting at his price and can have a good game in that one. And then, like I said, Evan hit on pretty much every other guy I had kind of or something to touch on.
I've been trying to make Ted Ginn happen all year, and then last week, wasn't on him, obviously. And
I think he scored in the first game against the Bucs too, did he not? He might have. Yeah, he did.
I don't know, maybe.
You gotta play more. You gotta play more best ball, Crane. You don't have to worry about the week-to-week stuff.
I do need to play more best ball. I need anything. So let's talk about some tight ends because Travis Kelce, the most expensive guy, he's not playing. Rob Gronkowski. They should have this game in hand, but if they have it in hand, it very well could be because of Gronk. Greg Olsen suddenly up to 5,600. Boy, I missed the days of him being 4K. That was a lot of fun for a while. Evan Ingram made it through the last game with just bruised ribs. That sounds like when I put a bunch of money into a night contest, I'm like, oh, I made it through just losing 70% of my money. But, hey, Ingram. So, Reeves, who are some of the tight ends you're looking for?
We talked about it last week, and it's like you've talked about your new max center with quarterbacks. You keep a very shallow quarterback pool, and I keep a very shallow tight end pool. We talked about last week. I was really only into those 3 guys. I have a really shallow list this week as well. I think it starts with Antonio Gates, where he's priced. Season highs across the board for Gates. Listen, we've got a fresh leg 37-year-old, in play here. He played 55 snaps last week. He ran 35 pass routes, season high in targets, catches, yards. Oakland is last in the league in receptions and receiving yardage allowed to tight ends. Tight ends are seeing 25.9% of the targets against Oakland. That's number 1 in the league. Evan kind of talked about Keenan Allen. So the Raiders have been really good against slot guys. They have not given up any production to those types all year. No wide receiver 1 weeks to interior guys, and just 1 top 20 week, and it was to Jarvis Landry. So I mean, all roads point to Antonio Gates, especially out. I mean, it could be another, 7 to 10 targets for Antonio Gates in this game. And like I said, he's fresh. He looked good last week too. He looked really good, making back shoulder catches. I'm assuming that Evan is on Gates as well. I think Charles Clay is interesting. No one ever wants to play Charles Clay. I don't either. He's very unsexy. His only tight end 1 scoring week, though, since he's returned, was against the Dolphins. And it was a low-volume passing game for the Bills as well, where I think they'll throw a little more in this one. I think the game script will be slightly different, given the Bills are a much worse road team. Dolphins are a way better home team. But they've allowed the second most receptions of tight ends on the year. I think he's kind of fine. Like a site like DraftKings. And my deep dig is Vance McDonald. Because I think he's going to play the whole game throughout. I don't think he's a guy that's really going to get shaved any type of playing time down. We know the flow chart, so it points to play guys against the Browns. He's been kind of the more receiving tight end between him and Jesse James. And like I said, just dirt cheap kind of punt, situation where he's not going to come out of the game. And if Landry Jones plays at all, like he'll still be in there. Like Landry Jones is not going to be throwing passes to Justin Hunter and dudes like that. So, I mean, those are kind of like the guys I'm looking at.
I'm just going back to thinking when we were talking about wide receivers. I'm kind of going backwards. The Cousins, Josh Doxson, Jamison Crowder stack. Come on, Evan. Yes or no?
I mean, are you going to just leave out Big Vern like that?
I ain't going to.
Retribution, 0-point retribution spot from Thanksgiving.
I knew Evan. That's one of the reasons I can talk about this, because I knew Evan was going to bring up our boy Big Vern, who's he's this year's Colby Fleener on this show, as far as I'm concerned. We're going to bring him up every week. He never does anything. No. He never does anything.
He scored last week.
You what?
He scored last week.
Whatever. I've given up. Oh, man. So,
disrespecting Big Vern, Crane.
I'm sorry, Big Vern. Just kidding. I'm not apologizing.
The problem is that Cousins doesn't throw it to him. I mean, that's the problem. His targets are like, I mean, I don't know. I don't understand why he doesn't throw it to him. I mean, Vernon Davis has like big playability. He's going to be in the best matchup possible for a tight end this week. I think he's very interesting low-owned play. I'll just transition to some tight ends that I like. I mean, I really think that the guys that Reeves named, though, are the guys that I like. I mean, Charles Clay against the Dolphins, Antonio Gates. I think that Ebron is in a good spot again. He's been balling, man. I mean, he's led the Lions in targets in 3 straight games. That's ridiculous. Cameron Brate let a lot of people down last week. I wasn't really on him, but that, you know, in what could become a higher scoring game this week, he should have a lot of opportunity to score touchdowns. The Saints have been great against tight ends, but, you know, Cameron Brate is a guy who's touchdown dependent anyway. Jack Doyle talked about him. He's got a great matchup against the Texans. His targets are consistent. He's got a great history against the Texans. I think that Jacoby Brissett plays well in the dome. And then Gronk, of course. Gronk can earn a $2 million bonus by either going for 116 yards to bring him to 100 or to bring him to 1,200 on the season, or by catching 11 passes. Now, he did have an 11-catch game in 2015 against the Jets, so it's within his range of outcomes. Is it super improbable? Yes, but I mean, it's something that he has accomplished. It's a feat that he has accomplished before, and he can also get that bonus now if he's the first-team All-Pro from the AFC, which he obviously should be. But you know, if we were there would be like percentages on it. I mean, I think that Travis Kelce would have a small percentage chance of getting that. We don't find out about that until like January 5th or 6th. So he can lock it up this week with 116 yards or 11 catches. It's a $2 million bonus. That is significant. You know, I know he's made a lot of money in his career, but you know, $2 million is significant to any.
That's big boy dollars, man. Yeah, like you can lock up $2 million. You got to do it. All right, Reeves. We have on here. We're going to talk about kickers and defense. We're not going to talk about kickers and defense. We ain't going to do it. So, Reeves, let's kind of talk about. Let's review 2017. All right.
I do want to just real fast not touch on defense, but I did want to ask Evan's take on the guys, these teams that are playing against these teams in these spots. So you have the 49ers, the Broncos. These low end defenses that are playing against like basically B squads. Like, are we just looking to punt now at defense this week? Is that what most people are looking at? You know, are you looking to get like the 49ers in at 2,100 or the Broncos at 45 at home against Patrick Mahomes, probably not playing with any starters? Any of those types. Like, is that what we're looking this week? That angle as well from DFS, where you would never touch these defenses, but these great offenses are shutting dudes down.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just, specific to the lineups that you said. I really like the Colts too against TJ Yates. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just case by case basis. I don't know. I don't have any like broad thoughts on like strategies there. I think that because they are facing Paxton Lynch, Patrick Mahomes, Sean Mannion, those defenses definitely like move up your list of defenses that you're intrigued by.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you guys want to play some defenses this week, which I assume you're going to because, well, we have to, like, focus on some of these guys that are playing these TJ Yates of the world. Though I'm not playing against Patrick Mahomes, right? With me, we're just not touching playing against Patrick Mahomes, the greatest player ever.
No, man, you like defenses that get negative points, play against Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, I love Patrick Mahomes. He's the guy that everybody's going to be pumped about this week. I am sure of it. Or, like, after this week. Alex Smith, yes or no, does he lose his job with Patrick Mahomes for the playoffs?
No.
Come on! Oh, I can dream. All right, so Reeves, what are some of the things that let's look back on 2017. What are some of the more surprising things that have happened to you this year? Not to you.
Well, I had a very, very mixed year in seasonal. I think a lot of people did. I play in a lot of seasonal leagues. A lot of real just cattywampus. Some teams that were hurt by injuries, some had underperforming players. And then some that were good, survived all that. But I mean, it was just a real uneven year. I basically broke even in seasonal splits and annies. It was a really hard year too. You had to really play wires this year, pick up guys at the right time. Even dudes you didn't want to pick up, like Kenyon Drake and stuff. You just had to pick up guys like that. They ended up being, really saviors in seasonal league. But I really think that funneled, to being a really focused year in DFS. I feel like like I said, I had my best year in DFS success rate wise. And I think it was because of all of that unevenness in seasonal leagues just channeled like weekly plays. Especially in cash, like it's been double up city. It's been one of the years where it's just been it. I don't want to call it easy because it's never easy. I mean, you always have to, even last week I sweated out having a couple bad plays and had some guys save me, in lineups. But I mean, it's been back-to-back years now where you just pay up at running back. And you pay for these top guys, and you just take what comes afterwards. You jam Gurley in, you jam Le'Veon Bell in, you jam David Johnson in. It's been like that. The Saints guys, that's been the most consistent position. It's the most predictable for volume. It's the most predictable for scoring upside. And I'm going to go back and look at this. Probably one of the first articles to write in the offseason will be about the passing decline in the NFL this year. It's how much the passing production dropped. And, we've had because now we have a trend now for multiple years. I wrote about it at the beginning of summer, and it was just a short sample, but I wasn't sure to really call it a trend yet or not. But teams are using more wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 sets. Wide receiver 1 production now has dropped for multiple seasons, while wide receiver 3 production has steadily risen. We've seen it. It was, wide receiver 1s were bad this year. Like, it was tough. And so some of that was injury induced, but I mean, it was a rough year for top wide receiver play. And so I'll be really excited to go back and look at the passing decline. And we had a lot of quarterback injuries this year. It was, I'm definitely looking forward to going back and under the hood of what happened, because it's not just like it went to rushing blew up and was good this year. Just passing and points were down. Like, it was bad this year. So I'm definitely looking forward to going underneath that. But that's been a great for DFS because we haven't really had to try to jam those guys in. I mean, we could play Antonio Brown every week, but we never had to pay for all these guys, and had to chase wide receiver points because we had consistent wide receiver play consistently at, the 6K range, the 5K range. There's always been plays every week.
What about you, Evan? What out for you looking back on this season?
I don't know. I really haven't thought about it a whole lot. I've just been like focused, laser focused on week 17 and getting it out of the way. But definitely like the quarterback, losing all the quarterbacks to injuries really impacted so much, because I mean, you would just see, like with Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson went from leading the NFL in touchdown catches to you couldn't even use him anymore. I mean, Devontae Adams had some good moments with Brett Hundley, but getting all those quarterbacks back next year is going to make it. I think the league is going to spice up the league a lot. We should get obviously Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Carson Palmer. I think he might come back. He's not really highly regarded, but he's a guy who can give you like quality starts at the quarterback position. Andrew Luck, Ryan Tannehill, Sam Bradford. I mean, those are just some guys off the top of my head. The regression of a lot of some certain quarterbacks makes you wonder about their future. Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota in particular. I think that Jameis Winston would some people would group him in with that, but I think that he has played better recently. I know he's always going to have these like mind-boggling turnovers. Like last week he lost 3 fumbles on sacks, and I think that he's got to improve his ball security. But I think that the league will be better for all the quarterbacks returning, and the production will rise. For the wide receivers at the running back position, these big time running backs that can play in the passing game, that are solid on the ground, and that just don't have to come off the field. These guys are really difficult to find, but they are the true difference makers in fantasy football. And it was David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell in 2016. It was Todd Gurley and Le'Veon Bell this year. I wish that more teams would commit to using guys like that. But at the same time, there's only a few guys like that on the planet. So I understand, why they don't. LaShawn McCoy also could be considered to be in that category. But, trying to discover the next guys that are going to be utilized in that manner, I think will be a goal for everyone going forward in fantasy and DFS and season-long best ball, et cetera.
It's going to do it for us, guys. That's a season. 17 weeks. We did a few more in the offseason, too. And, of course, we're done. It's over, guys. It has been a lot of fun. As always, we're going to have to do this again next year. And you know what? If they don't bring us back, we'll do it ourselves.
I won't. They got to pay me.
Okay. That's all right. I got you, brother.
I love you guys. I love doing this. If you guys want to text me, I'll text back. But
I'll text back. Just the speed on which I text back, well, that depends what kind of cheddar's coming your way. I understand. But, all right, we're going to get off here. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in all year. It's been a blast for us. For the last time, I'm Eric Crane. He's Rich Rebar. He's Evan Silva. Thanks so much for watching RotoWorld's DFS Pick 6, presented by RotoGrinders. See you guys later.